No worries. All right. Well, okay. Welcome to another live stream. I've got Will on the line, and we're going to do a bit of a walkthrough of the system. Now, you should be able to find it now if you do a refresh. Okay, so you can now see. You should be able to see on the screen. That's it. No worries. Sounds good. No worries. So what I've been doing just recently, and before I got you on the line, was just pretty much just putting the towns and farm names to the map. So I'll zoom that out, and then you can kind of see what this is what the board game, when you're sitting around in a live environment, should look like. Okay, so what I've got is the map board in the center, and then I've got the 4 Imperial shield devices in the corners. So there's 4 competing. So in the actual live campaign, there's going to be this region that is being contested by 4 empires. Now, for the purposes of the tournament, what I've done is created a tournament board, and that anytime we want to do a live event, that this board could be used in the same way. That each province that we're going to be playing with, so in a live quarterly event, it will be that each of the boards will be on a separate table, and each table will have this kind of grid. The difference will be that I'm not sure if you can see what I've just highlighted, but yeah, no worries. Now you can see the different colours. You've got the gold ones, you've got some grey ones, some black ones. You can see that there are some that have got so they're different. They're different faction leaders. So on this board is pretty much just representing the faction leaders and the group of 5 that are in their companions. So in order to participate in to make a geopolitical move, you need to make a group of 20. So each of these cards here is 5. You can see that there's down the bottom there's a SP value, and most of them should show 100,000 silver pieces. Yeah, so hiring other geopolitical players, that's what they're going to hire themselves out as if you want them to join into your group. But most of the time, it'll be a matter of hiring the local people. So this map in the center is the geopolitical tournament map. So what I've got is the map, and then I've got the fog of war over the top of the map. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, I know the delay is kind of makes it a little bit difficult. The grid that's there, it looks like So that's just as a reference. I have kept that layer in there. I can remove the layer by just clicking on. It's called Jigsaw. Yeah, it's just a grid system. No. So I can put the jigsaw layer. I can put a reference number or something like that, so people could indicate where they want to go. But yeah, sorry. Yes. Yeah, a group of yeah. So it would be a matter of taking one of these geopolitical players, for example, and then making a group of 20. And then what I'll do is then that group of 20 will be represented here. So if you want, I can just grab some locals and make up a group of 20. But for example, I'll just go through the list of geopoliticals so that you can make a decision on who you want to play the part of, for example. So we've got a pro Samarajay rebel group that they haven't sort of given up on their agenda, so they're not in they're not peacefully settling into the new way of doing things. So they're kind of still considered outlaws. Then we've got the guild grandmasters. So we've got alchemists, we've got animal handlers, appraisers. We've also got mercenary groups. So we've got Alpha Mercenary Group. We've got the Beta Pro Valini Independence Rebel Group. Archaeologists, assassins, ballistics, and then we've got the ambassadors. So each of these imperial factions has an ambassador that's a geopolitical player as well. Then there's another outlaw mercenary group. Now, it just continues on with the different guild grandmasters. And so I'm just moving around the map at the moment. Just going through all the geopolitical players. Yes. Yeah, the mercenaries can be hired and fired. They really they generally won't move unless they're being either paid or if it's a sure thing. So one of the things I've got in mind is that if you do find a undead infested town, that the difficulty level of the encounters that you face, it's a hard slog unless you actually call in reinforcements instead of facing off against some fairly hard challenges with a group of 20. That instead you could hire another group of 20 to join you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, that means that the share of the loot is much reduced. So, so in terms of the people who are participating, they all will receive a share of what's found. And so, if you call for reinforcements, then you're going to have to share with them. It may be that you can hire them for the amount that's visible on their card, and that's the only reimbursement they'll get. Or you could possibly strike up a deal whereby they get a share of the loot, and um, yeah, so it's a much reduced share of the loot, but then you're able to overcome um, more of these challenges. Okay, well, for example, let's just say that you are the group faction leader for Delta Mercenary Group. Now, I know, not very inventive in terms of names, but the Delta Mercenary Group leader is a Grand Master of single-handed weapons. So that's pretty awesome. Underneath, they've got a Master Swimmer, a Master Trapper, a Master Animal Handler, and a Master Brawler. So their name is in the form of a two-part alias. So doesn't seem like a very butch, strong name for a Grandmaster of One-Handers, Tame Ladybug. But Tame Ladybug is the alias for this particular one. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select over here. This is their token. Now I'm going to take the token and I'm going to cut that token, and then I'm going to zoom back out, and then I'm going to go and place that on the map. So I'm going to place that token at the fortified town of Genesee. No, the town is, this one is an occupied town. So I'm going to just move the token to Genesee, and it hasn't caught up yet. There we go. I'm zooming in on Genesee on the screen. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is go to the town of Genesee's people. So the town of Genesee has people living there, and you're going to possibly go and recruit some of these people to join you in this mission. So you can go through the list of people of Genesee, and I'm going to go through them, and then I'll let you make the choice of who you want to hire. Now let's just say that your budget for hiring adventurers is, I don't know, let's say 200,000 silver pieces, and that you're going to go searching for a fortified town or a hamlet or a village. That hopefully by looking for that undead infested town or whatever, that you will hopefully be able to be compensated for the cost of hiring these individuals. In addition, so by hiring them for 40,000, they don't get a share of the loot. So, yeah, paying them up front. Yeah. So if they're militia, so if it's a baron who is doing the calling up militia, then they have to pay a share of the loot goes to the adventurers. But when it's purely a matter of hiring and firing, it's based on what they want to be paid. So I'm just zooming in on the character parties, so the adventuring parties. And so we've got, the first one is a party made up of a master alchemist, appraiser, then also apprentice alchemist, apprentice appraiser, and an apprentice herbalist. So their bonus, down the bottom of the card, you can see a plus bonus. So the plus bonus, it adds up to the modifiers. Okay, so when you are facing off against a creature encounter, if you've got a group of 20, then your base is 20. Your base number is 20. So anything that's 20 or less, you are victorious. Now, yeah, it'd be 20. Yeah, 20. Yeah, so 20 plus 4, so you're 24. However, your own bonuses are plus 10. So that means that you're currently sitting on 34 if you hire this group of adventurers. So you really want to have, as many modifiers as you can possibly get. So, yeah, sorry. Okay, no worries. I'll show you an example. So, what I'm going to do is firstly I'll go back to the um, board game, the board map, and then I'm going to go to the creatures, and I'm going to put the black over the creatures, and then wilderness one. Okay, so um, it'll catch up at some point on the screen. Okay, so I've just zoomed out, and so what we've got now is a completely black screen. So once you see what I'm seeing, I'll progress. So I'm just going to set the eraser tool. Okay, so now we've got a completely black map. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select, I'm going to just basically use the eraser tool, and I'm going to erase and then zoom in on what I erase. Okay, so this is to signify what I've got is a black cover over the top of all the encounters. So in order to do this as a live stream, instead of rolling dice and things like this, what I've got is effectively a random grid work of encounters. And so all I have to do is I just touch it with the eraser tool, and then that's erased a little piece of the map. A piece of this grid. And I'm going to zoom right in on it, and I'm going to then erase more. Okay, so this is a snake, giant snake encounter. No, that's all right. Yep. Okay, so now I've revealed that encounter without revealing me the neighboring ones. Yes. Yes. If you'd suffered some casualties, then and your and if your modifiers are lower than 29, then there are consequences to that, which result in a number of failures being chosen. Um, so if, for example, so this is just an encounter that you've now had. Now, what I was going to do is put it into a move layer. But I'm going to just go back to the okay, so this is, for example, taking the encounter and cutting it, because the thing is that when you've had the encounter, it's deducting from the total number of encounters remaining. So so there will be a grid of all the encounters in the province. So when it comes to having an encounter, I'll go to that encounter list. I'll then erase one of them and I'll cut it out of the deck, and then I'll take it and I'll place it. I'll place it out in the open. So this will also mean that for record keeping, like in terms of what happened to you guys during your geopolitical move. So instead, you can actually say, well, our group faced a giant snake pit. Now, this is not just a giant snake, but this is a giant snake pit. Yeah, so this is actually like some of these creatures. If you encounter them in the wild, they're nowhere near their lair. so you don't get a loot drop. So by finding a lair, that automatically means that there's a loot drop to go with it. That's okay. Well, let's create your party. Let's create your party first. so at the moment we're purely like talking about, like, we're speculating about the about it all. So I'm going to zoom back out, and then I'm going to go to your character, which is this one over here. I'll zoom in on that, and so you can see that there's a missing icon. So the icon I took before. And now I'm going to go back to the people of this town. So yeah, there's a bit of a variation in the people who live there and like their primary skills. A lot of the skills are, there's a bit of random going on. It's trying to make up the number of who would be in this town. These are their primary skills. It's not necessarily all of their skills, but just to start the game, people are only going to be known for their primary skill. So yeah, they've all got a modifier of +4 until you get down to, there's some that have got +4 and some that have got +2. The ones that are, you're pretty much paying like 10,000 silver pieces per modifier to hire them for a month. Okay, so the difference between a +4 and a +2 modifier is effectively, the price. So when you're putting your, as I said, you got like 200,000 silver pieces in your budget for this particular month. So you could cut to the chase and blow 100,000 on hiring another geopolitical player, and they're +10, if you know what I mean. But if you're low on funds, then it may mean that you can only afford to hire a group of 5 that only have a +2 modifier. No, we process through each encounter in turn. So like, just in terms of getting your group together, look, as I said, I've given you 200,000. But if you want to smash through and not really suffer casualties, then it's not a bad way to go. I mean, you're still possibly going to face something that's going to be stronger than you, but so yes, right now you could afford one geopolitical group faction leader and their companions if you wanted to, or you could afford 3 of the +4 modifier ones if you wanted. No worries. Rightio. So I'm going to now grab those. So that's cut. Well, I'm going to copy them, not cut them. Okay, there we go. So copy, and then I'm going to go back over to the geopolitical board, and I'm going to paste them somewhere. Where do I paste them? There they are. Alright, for some reason that didn't come through. Maybe I was on the wrong layer. Alright, sorry. Okay, so you as the geopolitical player, you're hiring these people from the town of Cheddar. Yep. So the way I want to make it look is that if this is in a live environment where there's like all the people in costume and they're all vying for the same, they're all feeding off the same towns, villages, hamlets, and farms. They're trying to hire people that may already be spoken for. So if they've been called up by the Lord, then the Lord has precedence. If that makes any sense. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So yeah. So what I've done now is I'm just cutting and pasting these adventurers beside your character. Okay, so now you've assembled your force of adventurers. So there's 20 of you, so that's 20 as a base. Then your character and entourage adds up an extra 10 plus 10 in modifiers, and then you have effectively another plus 8, so that gives you a 38 base. Cool. So all right, so that's how you assemble a party. So would you like me to do you want to make a move? Okay. Yes. Oh well, I'll move you to a pit of snakes first, because you haven't actually gone to a pit of snakes. Yes. Okay. No worries. Yes. Okay. So first things first, like the actual live events that I'm looking for is that there is a combination of the geopolitical players doing their thing combined with people doing live role play and fulfilling objectives and missions and things like that face to face out in the field with the creatures in a traditional LARP sense. So everything I'm doing with the geopolitical is effectively just as a backup. It's a backup to the live aspects. So because of I'd never. Well, the problem is that I never. Well, that's a problem that a lot of people faced, was that they never participated in things like sagas because well, the thing is that it's only the people who are in charge of war bands would have access to it. So unfortunately, it was restricting the number of people who could participate compared. Well, what I'm trying to do, I don't really know much about that geopolitical game, but I'm wanting to make it so the entry level for participation in what I'm trying to achieve is just simply a matter of being the licensee of a group faction and then participating in the geopolitical game. They could be. No, so for example, if you were to be the group faction leader of the Delta Mercenary Group, then that would be your exclusive province. As long as you remain as long as you remain a licensee, then you are the group faction leader for that group. Now that's only the leader and their companions. That doesn't make up the 20. So, of course, if people are willing to follow you and people are willing to allocate their characters to your group faction, then you might have your 20 and they just work for a share of the loot. So you don't have to pay them anymore. You just basically have to share in the loot with them. So it's really just taking the traditional idea of having a warband or a platoon or a company, a mercenary company, to the point where the leadership remains intact, and you could hire and fire members of that group if you want to. You can hire people on, or you can accept them into your ranks as well. Effectively, they volunteer to join your ranks, and you call the shots, and then whatever results come out of the geopolitical, they are kind of stuck with. So, yeah. Well, they're either a group faction leader, in which case they can take any of these group factions for a spin as a licensee, or they could be a standard, say, player character, and they could allocate their player character to you. So they could join your mercenary group. I mean, say for example, they don't want to go out into the bush in the middle of winter because they get too cold, or the exact opposite, they don't want to go adventuring during the summer because it's just too hot. So they might go and allocate their player character to your mercenary group and say, yeah, look, you got me for 6 months. You can allocate my character to any of the geopolitical moves you want to. And they would get a standard share of the loot according to their whatever design you want. But yeah. So for this example, as a free range chicken, you've got no sponsor, so nobody's sponsoring you to do anything right now. But instead of just sitting in Genesee drinking beer, you're going to decide to go for a bit of a wander. In which case, that's where you found the snake, or the snake pit. So let's just say, for example, that you went and you left Genesee and you moved along this track, and Gosino, yep. So you got to Gosino. Now you've got a fork in the road. You can head to the west, or you can head to the south, or you could even branch out and you could go and decide to go straight ahead and head in a southwesterly direction into the fog of war. Because you're looking. Right. Well, the reason is that we've already found a snake pit, so we need to find out where that snake pit is. So, no, I think I understand the confusion. So, what I did before, you asked about how you compare your. Yeah, and then I went, well, I'll show you how the modifiers work and what the difficulty rank is. So anyway, so we're at Gosino, and I'm going to start moving in that direction. Now, when it catches up, you'll see me revealing territory. Okay, so heading in a southwesterly direction, and you've going through some grassland and a little bit of scattered woods, and then let's just keep going. And all right, you've hit some water. and let's just say that the water's edge is where you find your snake pit. Yeah, so your snake pit is at that location. Now, I've got your snake up here, and the result is that, yeah, it's a victory, a clear victory, because the actual difficulty of rank of the snake pit is currently 29, and your combined modifiers and everything like that. Yeah, so it's toast. So I'm going to cut that, and then I'm going to find which layer I put it on, and then all right, found it. All right, so I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to move it to the move layer. So I created a layer called the move layer, just so that I could plant that encounter card. Yeah, so I can plant that encounter card exactly where it was found. So yeah. Okay, now I just moved the my face to the top right hand corner. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, but I don't think it's going to make any difference. I don't think you're going to see it because it's okay. So with Paint.net, you've got it effectively on the screen. There's a grid, and I've set the grid to be the number of pixels. So when it comes to what you were asking before, just then, was when do you decide that there'll be an encounter? Is that correct? Yeah. So in order to decide that, what I can do is I can grab like a line, and I can stretch out that line, and it tells me how many pixels that I've traveled with that line. It's not easy for me to explain, but yeah, so you can see that on the bottom of the screen. I'm not sure if you can even pick it up, that the numbers are changing. So, oh, okay, no worries. So, yes, yeah. So I can make it so that so you're asking how far before an encounter is found. Well, it could be that I decide that it's going to be every 100 pixels. Now, the scale of the map, that's only like it is. So because each of, I don't know if I explained to you previously that each one of those pixels on the screen, when I've zoomed into the town, each one of these pixels is a 10-foot by 10-foot area. And so the scale of this map isn't, it's big. It's a 9 mile by 9 mile island effectively. But in terms of how far you've travelled, it's really not that far when you consider that each one of these is a single pixel. So when I say that you can move like 100 pixels, that's 1,000 feet. Yeah, so 300 meters. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So, look, a lot of it comes down to moving tactically. So, in the Civil War, there's a lot of well, it's not like a modern day Civil War where there's unexploded ordnance and things like that, but in terms of ordnance, there are unexploded elemental traps that have been set up that will detonate, and then it can harm everybody. There are physical mechanical traps. There are pit traps, things like this. Yeah, no. In this case, this is a pit of snakes. It's just a natural pit of snakes, and look, I decided to plonk this this pit of snakes right there on the water's edge. So maybe that's just their nesting ground, which justifies why there might be some loot. So just for the purposes of this first encounter, I'm going to call it as being that you've encountered the snakes at this location. I mean, look, in terms of the geography, the fog of war, pretty much you can't see too far into advance, and I haven't actually explored what's at this water's edge, but I think it's time to give you some loot. So I'm going to give you some loot first. So, right, we're going to the loot layer now. And so I'm going to zoom out on the loot layer, and then I'm going to select the eraser tool and the encounters. Yeah, so by doing it this way, it just means that I can I don't have to roll any dice. It's fair. It was as fair as I can make it. So I don't remember where I laid out the cards precisely. So if I don't remember, then nobody else is going to be able to say, "Oh, you gave them 200,000 silver pieces." So anyway, I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to zoom in on what I just did, and it looks like it's coin. Now, when I say coin, the thing is that we're not talking about like a stack of coin that's sort of sitting in the lair. We're talking about all sorts of goods that may have been, like if the giant snake is things of value that have immediately been traded for a promissory note. Now, the promissory note is issued to you by the priests of trade. So the priests of trade are effectively there with you. So I'm going to cut that out. I'm not sure if you can see that you've just found 48,854 silver pieces worth of loot. So yeah, so I'm just cutting that out of there, and then I'm going to go back to the move layer. I'm going to get rid of the loot layer, and then I'm going to zoom back in, and I'm going to plonk. Well, look, I'm just going to clutter it up. There's no reason why I can't just drop loot. So the thing is that, yeah, so the problem is that the way that the layers work is if I'm not careful, I could actually plonk this over the top of the snake card, so you would no longer see the image of the snake. But there's no reason why I couldn't stack the loot on top of the snake and effectively combine the deck, if you know what I mean. Exactly. So so that's yeah. Well, mine. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing is that in terms of record keeping, I have in mind that I should I should basically at the end of a person's turn. So I won't be processing in a live environment where there's the geopolitical play. This could go on for hours. People having a bit of a drink, a bit of an eat, a bit of a free form, negotiating amongst themselves in between their moves. But at the end of the day, the whole point would be to process as many moves as possible to get almost like an entire quarter worth of moves out of the way, so that that shows like really what I'm trying to do with the live stream is only a it's a backup. It's all because of COVID that I'm doing this, because I've got no alternative but to, you know, yes, exactly. So like every quarter we could have a weekend event where the game is played, and and that instead of like what I've got here is using paint.net, and I'm using an eraser tool over the top of a fog of war layer. What I've got is the actual maps on a laminate. So I printed out laminate large scale, and then I've used like a spray adhesive. So it's a spray chalk. Yeah, a spray. It's a spray on chalk. The other alternative is like a scratchy kind of surface, and so people would be revealing their move by effectively revealing territory. So the thing with a lot of the moves being submitted is that you would submit the moves to me in a written form, and then rather than me having to go back and forward and asking, that the leader of whatever the geopolitical move is, that they will have the initiative to kind of make some field decisions, and that you provide the overall strategy to their move, and that I effectively consult. I consult the standing orders that you provide. So your standing order could be, if you ever reach water, that you should go up and down the bank a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right to see how much water there is, if that makes any sense. Yeah. Now, exactly. So, so the thing is that this river, it's not really much of a river. It's a well, in terms of pixels, it's only like 30 foot wide. So it's just wade across the river or whatever it is. But you can continue in a southwesterly direction if you want. So would you like to continue? Okay. All right. So I'll just get the little token layer and hide that. And then, all right. So have you crossed? You're crossing the river, and then you're going up. Yep. No worries. Okay. So you are still hitting water. You've hit some old growth forest, and you've continued down along. Still got the river on the to the north. Then it's swinging back a little bit. Look, I'm just going to cut to the chase a little bit. Now we've got this bridge over here. I'm just going to reveal the bridge, because it's a bit unrealistic that you can't see off the side of the bridge more than a certain distance. All right, going back to your troubles, and it looks like all you're doing is following progressively thinner and thinner sections, but still, I've now crossed to the other side of a. You want to go north, don't you? So, oops, more water. And it's getting a bit tight, but still got some land. All right. So you can see that it does reveal, and now you're back to the safety of this track. So no further encounters. So now you've pretty much just done that, and that's now revealed, and that section of the map is now revealed to everybody after you. So yeah, so people aren't necessarily having to double their Yeah. Now, the other thing I've got in mind is the consecration of a track. Now, um, really, the consecration of a track requires effectively to pay for that consecration. So, priests can consecrate tracks and make it so that undead, for example, can't annoy you. It's effectively a barrier against the undead, not a barrier against other natural creatures as such. So it does, like, the creatures generally stay away from the tracks. But the thing is, of course, there is a possibility. But the locals have cut down the grass along here, and there's you've got plenty of space to see them coming, and they just avoid staying in these areas. So anywhere that's got the fog of war revealed with a black line through it, that's to signify a consecrated track. Yeah. So you still got plenty of daylight left. So your move's not. This is only a single day. So you're still on that day. So I was going to work out how far you've travelled. Well, yeah, so I can kind of do something like that with a red duva. That's not on the layer that I want. Yeah, there's plenty of and it could be it could be as simple as like a finger, using a finger to determine the So that's So the length of this is 249 pixels. That's the length of this piece of string. Yeah, so you've travelled that. So I mean, really, the whole thing about moving tactically and such, it could be that I declare that you can move up to a certain number of pixels, and in one day, like, yes, we're talking about the possibility of an attack, the possibility of finding a trap, all that kind of thing. And you're hiring these adventurers not to give their life, but to make money. So they're being hired. they're not necessarily going to be pushing themselves to advance fast, and things like that. So yeah, you're not paying me enough to go faster than this. So yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, as in, sorry, do a circuit around, or yes, yes, okay, yep, okay. So go from the road, go in a southeasterly direction. Okay, so heading there now, kind of in a southeasterly direction. Okay, and you've hit water. Now, as I said about standing orders, you can go. Okay, I want to go left and right for X amount of. You could basically say just scout the bank and just see if it's not a lake. But as you can see, it kind of makes it possible to reveal. All right, just let's say we've got another encounter with some undead. All right, so I'll just zoom back out. Okay, so I've zoomed back out. Now I'm going to put a black over the top of the encounters. I'm going to put... now I cut that. I'm sure I cut that. But, you know, when I said before about cutting the creatures out of the map, yeah, well, it's not cut out, so I'm just going to delete it. I am not going to save this. I'm not going to save this. No, so, alright, so that's that. Now, so here we are. I've got the black over the encounters again. I'm now going to select the... Well, sorry, no, it's just a normal encounter. We're not sure if it's going to be undead at this stage. We're just going to call it another encounter. So, again, I'm going to select the eraser tool. And I'm going to now randomly select and click. And then zoom in. Alright, looks like you've got some giant bees. Yes. Bees and snakes. So this is a... Okay, is it... Okay, it's a giant bee. Now, when I say giant bee, what I've decided is that a single giant bee isn't really that much of a threat. You know, yes, it can kill you, but the thing is that if there's enough of you around, then you should be able to take it. So instead, what I've decided is for every difficulty rank of some of these sort of mass creatures, is that for every level, like every number of difficulty represents 1B. Yeah, so you're in luck again. there's only 33 bees. So you've just smashed the bees. And so yeah, well that's the thing. Like I'm not trying to make like a civilization style. It's not like a civilization style simulator. It's pretty much just it's there as a backup to the LRP. It's not the biggest game in town. I don't want it to be like take over from the live game, but I certainly want the live game to... Yeah, I want the live game to continue regardless of whether there is a lockdown or regardless of whether any of this stuff happens. You know, it's really just... yeah, it's really just that I want to make... continue the campaign, like the show must go on kind of gig. So... Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of, what have we got here? You've found an ingredient. So I've got some loot for you. Now, I know that I was talking about it only being the hive or whatever you find loot, but just for example, I'm just going to keep providing loot. Yep. Found some. Well, the main thing is that I don't want to give like too much loot away in like just nothing encounters, and I wanted to make it logical that why would you get loot from just bees? I mean, unless the bees actually have some kind of medicinal property to them. Yeah, exactly. There's all sorts of things that you could do with them, and so yeah, it is. Yeah, it's one of those things that yeah, I want to make it. I want it to make sense. I don't want to just sort of go, oh, loot drop. It's really just that, yes, obvious. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So no, it's really, I'm just trying to justify why like that. Okay, so the other thing, sorry, I was going to mention was that if there are things that are natural products, things that are um, that that make up the loot, like your first encounter with the giant snake pit, that might be that there's sufficient material components to, like, there's the meat, there's the teeth, there's the skull, there's the skeleton, there's all these things. But in terms of a giant snake pit, there's also baby snakes, and so yeah, if you want to like create your own little death trap dungeon, then you know, mm, exactly. Yep. Yeah. 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 Well, just say for example that the town of Genesee. Let's just say that you become the lord of the town of Genesee. Okay. Now I'll zoom in on Genesee. So here's Genesee. Here's Genesee, and hypothetically speaking, as the Lord of Genesee, like, yes, you could live in the keep and things like this, but imagine that you find an say a water elemental, and you can basically convince the water elemental to keep you from drowning, and that you you well, let's just say that we'll call this bolt hole. So I've created a layer called bolt hole. Now, bolt hole is a subterranean level. Now, I'm going to make bolt hole a bit opaque, and then I'm going to draw in bolt hole as a line that is 10 foot wide. Now, I've got that below that, so sorry. Okay, so move layer, bolt hole. Alright, sorry. Now let's try that again. um, yeah, so I'm going to try and put it bolt hole underwater. Now that is how many pixels? So that's 330 feet of flooded tunnel. Okay, so it's effectively you've decided that you're going to create a bolt hole um, from the cellar or the sub cellar of this town. So you may choose to make this your tower. So instead of living in the central keep, that you decided to live in this corner tower, and then in secret you've hired people to, or you've basically done this in secret to create a bolt hole through the water underground, so it comes out of the foundations and goes into the water, and you've effectively got a little pet water elemental to keep you from drowning. So it creates like a tunnel in the water for you. So that's your escape route. So anytime that there might be assassins after you, or for any reason that you could choose to tell people that you live in this tower in the corner, but instead every night you just go along that 330 foot of tunnel, and that you've decided that you'll build yourself your own. You've decided in the middle of the this island here. So you can. I'm not sure if you can now see it. I zoomed out a little bit too far, but yeah. So exactly. So when I so I've just basically created an example. So the little black dot that is visible. Well, I'm not sure. I can on my screen. It seems to be visible. Yeah. So at night, you go along that corridor down through here. This is just standing orders. So I want the gloves to be on for the start of the campaign. I don't want people to be just knifing each other, and I want to make it so that I can create a stable campaign that's going to last for 20 years. So the only way I can do that is by creating a whole heap of in-character justifications for peace. It's really hard to justify peace sometimes. Especially with some of the hard cases that just want to kill things. I'm going to try and push home to everybody. I think it'll be pretty obvious, much as soon as you're involved in the geopolitical game, that the local people are assets. At the very least, they're assets, and they are worth more alive than dead. That to a baron, they pay their taxes, and yeah, exactly. So I mean, and so that's I have to say this is as a disclaimer that's not how I feel about people who are not affluents. That the workers of this world shouldn't be treated as just cannon fodder. But no, the main thing is that they're not just loot drops. They're not just there to be murdered by PCs. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so I mean, look, that's kind of like how a move can be processed, and look, a lot of it comes down to the juggling act, the juggling act of me processing the move and being efficient and going to the different layers and cutting and pasting and things like this. It may in fact be better that I don't even think about having every single layer on the map, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Mm. Well, I'll show you a failure, because not that I was hoping that you'd cop a failure, but just for for research purposes, purely academic, you might, so a failure, for example, could be in the same way. I just go onto and select a failure and delete away. Oh, I can see the word killed. Well, okay. Yeah. Well, in this case, it says it's titled KIA, and it says that the company. All right, let me have a look at what's going on here. Okay, so company Gamma Party. Now, I really have to get used to the Greek phonetic alphabet, but I think that Gamma is, I think it's like Charlie. I think it's Charlie. I can hear Google. Yeah. So in the process of, let's just say the snake, you found a snake pit, and the second adventurer in the Gamma Party is killed in action. So maybe they fall into the snake pit, and they're KIA. So you basically do the same thing, and that is to cut that out of the pack. Oh, look, I mean, so what? I'll use them up eventually. It may just be that I just repopulate with a brand new deck. So as I go through it, rather than just recycle them and things like that. So the point of doing that is that let me just get rid of failures and then go back to province tokens. And so, okay, so this guy here, the first aider, named Mercury Defender. So Mercury Defender is, not so, yeah. So the intention is that, like most of the time, it's not just like a KIA. It could be that they've actually disappeared. Like there's a full-on missing in action kind of thing. There's a whole range of results from that give you options like to do a retreat. So you could actually do a fighting withdrawal back to the start of your move. So effectively you could retreat back to that town. Yeah. So so I'll look. So the thing is, let's just say that you encountered something that's well and truly like strong for you. Let's just say that you've been overwhelmed by 5. So like that's not really overwhelmingly strong, but let's just say I'm going to hit this eraser tool 5 times, and then we'll work out what the results are from that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exactly. So, yes, it is. So the thing is that, but the main thing is that, as I reveal, you can effectively stop the clock by, if you get a card that says that you've had the shit kicked out of you, but you can make a fighting withdrawal, and it's like yes, I'm making a fighting withdrawal, and effectively that way. You've just suffered another KIA. Okay, so that's another KIA. That's KIA Company Delta Party 5th Adventurer killed in action. Yeah, so you've now lost that one, and then oops, sorry. Okay, all right, zooming in. Oh dear, you've got another KIA. Okay, that's Delta Party, third adventurer. Yep. So Delta Party, third adventurer. Didn't we already have Delta Party third? Double kill. Well, no, it won't. It won't transfer. So that was the fifth adventure in Delta, third adventure in Delta. Yeah, Delta's not. Delta's not. No. So I was. Oh shit! Here we go. So we've got Company Beta, third adventure killed in action. You've got 3 casualties. Yep. Yep. Okay. And then here we go. We've got serious, as in Company Beta party leader receives a serious wound. So serious wound still means in the fight, but yeah. And the final one is another KIA. So that's Company Gamma Party, fifth adventurer killed in action. So yeah. So the thing is that it is possible to have an entire, like some of the, like, look, I'll just look for fun. I'll just go and reveal a couple of other ones just so that we can. I want to make sure that my calculations aren't skewy and that not every single one of these is a KIA. Um, inquiring minds want to know. Okay, here we go. Near miss. Company makes a fighting withdrawal to the closest town, village, hamlet, or farm. So, yeah, they're not all, um, yeah, and I've got MIAs as well. Like, if somebody's, so I've now revealed a couple of MIAs. Yeah, the main thing is that I'm trying to make some interesting ones. So that they can. Yeah, they're not all. Here's another KIA. When I say they're not all KIA, they are not. They are not. They are not. And yeah, there's ones like minor. Company Alpha Party, fifth adventurer receives a minor wound. So they're not all doom and gloom, but it doesn't. No, it's only 20. It's only 20. No, the actual. No. So you've hired. So you've got your group of 5, which is your character and entourage, and you've hired an additional 15. Yeah. So the thing is that you don't have to. It's only when you've had this overwhelming, like if you've got a 50, and you go up against a 50, so like you've got 12 bad results to process through. It is entirely possible to be severely mauled. Now there's a little there are some things like, say for example, the snakes. Now if somebody's got say they're a master animal handler, maybe they can reduce one of them, or maybe if there's a master healer that or master first aider, that they can convert a death into a serious wound. Yeah. So there's things like that can come into play. There's also things like magic items and potions and things like this that can also come into play as well. Yes. Oh, so well, there are a couple of things. So the first thing is that um, the out of character mechanic for being a licensee of a group faction, it's completely out of character. It means that this is yours as long as you remain the licensee of it. So if you are the Delta Mercenary Group faction leader as an out of character license and your character dies, that just means that your character has died. It doesn't result in anything like else. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the look, I will now. Look, we're not really onto the subject of character progression and things like this, but I'll show you that. I'm just going to get out of this. I feel a bit. No, don't save, don't save, uh, don't save that either. And now I'm going to show you the Excel. So with Microsoft Excel, what I've decided to do is um, I've decided to make it so that every town, village, hamlet, farm will basically have the people allocated to it. Uh, so the people that I showed you before, the list of adventurers, they'll be allocated to, say for example, this is the farm of Merkovic, and the farm of Merkovic map shows all the towns, all the 20 by 20 buildings and the 10 by 10 buildings. Now these are 2-story stone buildings, and the central keep has the crypt will be beneath the surface. So yeah, so I've got a number in each one so that the people who live in this place can be allocated to them. So the standard sort of character sheet, if you want to call it, that was shown before. Yeah. So, for example, this one here, there's three, there's 4 artisans and then 1 apprentice. So the first card that you'll see on the on the left hand side is the standard sort of character card that is shown in the Geopolitical game, and then every time that character is activated, whether that's activated as a militia member or activated in terms of being hired by another Geopolitical player, they survive. Now, this is not just a single character. This is an adventuring party. So, if there are permanent casualties like a KIA, that they'll effectively be written out of the story. And it might be that that their story is actually included in the card system itself, explaining that their companions are still grieving, or that they still think about them. All sorts of little story arcs that it may be that they develop a fascination for killing snakes. You know. So what I've decided is that for every time they get activated, whether that's hired or whether that's called up for militia duties, that there will be additional information that's found out about them. So in the first update, I'm always going to include their alias in the card. Well, yeah, Brave Duck. The reason is that this can actually form the basis of a character sheet. So if you want to take these for a spin in a live environment, then you could be issued with a deck of these cards that you stick in a pocket. You don't just walk around with them out. But the thing is, if you need to refer to them, then you can refer to them by simply pulling it out and just having a quick look. So the party the party reference number is present. Update 1. I've got a place for party notes. And so it'll just provide additional information piece by piece. So not giving too much away too soon. So, allegiance, primary motivator. And then of course, I also want to introduce the additional skill that they have. So, in addition to the primary skill that they've got the secondary skills that they have as well, and the third skill and the fourth skill, etc. So, when it comes to maybe a saving throw on death, there's all those sort of little tricks. So, if somebody's basically poisoned, that maybe if they're if they're an alchemist, that and they know they're they might be able to identify what type of poison it is straight away, and if they've got the antidote, then they can take that antidote. So, so in terms of surviving some of these death calls, it may be situational, and it may be interpretation. That So yes, the characters are going to progress in terms of the information that's provided. So, there'll be update 1 through 5, for example. So, yes, there were. Yeah. Well, no, they're dead. Yes. Yeah. So the yes, if they're dead, they're dead, and if they're dead, then of course they don't cost as much to hire, because there's less people there as well. I'm kind of I'm kind of thinking about if you've got a bunch of 5 mates that are tight, they've been adventuring, they've seen out the entire Civil War together. They're a unit, and then one of them dies. They're probably not going to be looking for a replacement. They might spend a period of time adjusting, and they may just not ever get over it. And I'm just thinking about at what point does an adventuring party cease to be an adventuring party? So I was considering that if you have suffered 3 casualties in a party, that's the end of the party, and they might disband. That if there's 3, then it may be that they can still continue to function as a group of 3. But yeah, yeah, yeah. And if for example that this adventuring party was happened to be out doing the bidding of the Baron, and then they lost one of their members because of a set of the most ridiculous, stupid standing orders that they can imagine. And then the second time that they lose a member of their party, it's because of that kind of thing. It may be that I decide to disband them, and that they are going on a hunt, and that they're going to, it could be that there's some payback, and that this motivation. So in terms of leaders providing decent, solid, reasonable standing orders, yeah, exactly, and it's all, and it's gonna have to be like playing it loose. It may be that I create some tables, and that I allocate a random result. It could result in somebody their personality changing a little bit, that they just decide to be a bit more. Oh no, no, of course. I'm not sure if you can see what I've got on the screen at the moment, which is it should show third skill, fourth skill, fifth skill. Um, yeah. So if I F9, now you can see that immediately, just right then, for the same character, the top one, it's basically got Artisan Elemental Protection in the third skill slot and the fourth skill slot. Not yet on your screen. And okay, yeah, and now I've F9, and yeah, and so now you can see that it's now got a duplicate. So it won't be that I'm just going to accept that. I'll be like, no, hang on, they're not going to. Well, they can't become a grandmaster because effectively the number of points that have been allocated to skills to get both the third skill and the fourth skill to artisan, they are effectively have enough points to become a grandmaster. But there's no slots available for grandmaster, so they'll remain. I could just make them a master, and then reallocate the points elsewhere, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's a special. It's a special. Um, yeah. So in terms of group factions, a guild grandmaster is a group faction leader. Well, no, no. My intention is to have spread amongst 4 baronies. So that's 4 provinces. That there's one grandmaster for each of the skills for every group of 4. Same with mercenary groups, same with ambassadors, things like that as well. So, yeah, I mean, really, we're only talking about 9 square miles, and the population there's not enough people to justify having more grandmasters than that. So, yeah, so that is. I don't know if I've explained it properly or not.